So welcome to our webinar today, all about turning conflict into synergy. Today is Juneteenth in America, so I'd like to honour what that holiday stands for, but it's also the reason we don't have many people here from the US. And those of you who are, thank you for dialing in on what is a day off for you. So that shows both your commitment to what we're about and just your passion for this topic, and thank you for giving up your time. It's a holiday that only got legislated back in 2021, so it's fairly new in terms of it being something that's as pervasive across the US, but it's certainly one that's well appreciated, I'm sure. And then, of course, coming up in a couple of weeks is the July 4th holiday, which has never been about July 4th. It's like Thanksgiving for us. We watch Thanksgiving, which is one meal that takes the entire week. And I guess the July 4th holiday is a bit like that. So it's now a shutdown week for a lot of companies in America, and especially technology companies. They're going to be shutting down this year like they do at Christmas. So whereas our next webinar was going to be on July the 3rd, that's not going to, it's going to have the same effect as today in the US. So we've agreed to move that out a week. So it'll now be the following week, and Ian will put the link for that week and the dates and everything in the chat for you today. Ian, if you could maybe put it up as soon as you've got it there, because if anyone has to jump off a little early, that way they can still click the button and register for that date if you'd like to come along and register. Dennis, thank you for joining. Where are you joining from, Dennis?
Sydney, Oatley, Sydney. So
okay, nice.
Not too far from me.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you for joining. Dennis is new to our team, and I wasn't sure where you might be today, but thank you for dialing in and being a part of it. So guys, we're going to dig into this topic of conflict to synergy. We did talk about it in the last webinar. This is our ID Masterclass. So this is our chance to dig into the nuances of the topic and really get a little deeper than we would with people that are maybe, fairly new to ID. But before we do that, given that this is our Masterclass, we always take the time to first check in on each other and just reflect on, are we operating in stride, and get the benefit of the brain's trust of this group. If there's anything that we could or should be doing to get more in stride, we can lean on the expertise that's in this room, or if someone is particularly doing well and wants to share that and what they've done to get to that place, that's always really valuable to hear that as well. So in the chat, you might just think about for a second, on a scale of 0 to 10, what's your number that comes up for you? And whether it's a number, whether you'd like to express it some other way, with a word or an emoji or something like that, please just reflect what number you would put up to just indicate whether or not, to the degree to which you're in stride when you think about today and maybe how this week is going for you. You can see there's a bunch of 8s. Sam, 9, Judy, 9.5, Susie, 9.5. Good, must be the person she's married to. Just saying quietly.
Yeah, I think it should
All
worship.
right, Dennis is the surgery. Yeah.
I think Tristan's the knee. Yeah. Oh, mine's just like
Tristan.
I'm just new here, so I'm still kind of in that uncomfortable space, if you will. I would say, but nothing bad's happening, I would say. Just yeah.
Okay.
I read my profile. I'd like to know what's happening.
let's talk about it a little bit. So Dennis, for the benefit of the group, what's your ID?
It's 6374.
6374. Okay. So you can see, so Steve, who's on the call as well, is somewhat similar to you. So he might either relate to what you're about to share, or he might even have some ideas for you that might help accelerate things. So what to you is the reason for a 6? I think I heard you saying, is it because you feel somewhat new and you're still settling in?
Yeah. Because it's a different company and different set of expectations, and yeah, that's all it is really. Like just not completely comfortable, I guess, but it's not like, it's kind of almost to be expected. So
yeah,
just
nothing's wrong.
Nothing's wrong. It's just everything's relatively fine, but it's just like, it's still like, oh, okay, what I'm gonna make sure I do this, and like how do I get this across, or that kind of stuff. It's Well, as if I was in this, you know, in my previous employments, I kind of understand the ebb and flow of the workplace, and I kind of know how it's going to end up. I can see the finish line, if I will, that kind of thing.
Yep. So, just for the benefit of the team, you've been at ID now for what, a couple of weeks?
Yeah, 2.5, 3, something like that. Yeah, because of the
2.5 weeks. Okay, so it's still relatively new, especially for a 6374. There'd be a few people on this call who are the opposite ID to you, Dennis, and they'd probably feel like they were old school now after 2.5 weeks. But you know, given your ID, can you just firstly tell us, when you were changing roles, like shifting from one employer to the next, for you and for your ID, is that a fairly daunting experience? Like a big decision and a challenge? Is that something that's fun for you to do? How's that experience of changing over for you?
I wouldn't say it's fun, but I don't mind going to the new place. I really do not like the I suppose the whole kind of interview process and that kind of thing. It's not really my jam. Like, I obviously have to do
Yeah.
it, because you're selling yourself all all the time, and putting yourself out there. It's like um I'm like more of a head down kind of worker type. So like I don't mind going to another company. It doesn't faze me too much. But just I suppose have to get comfortable, I guess.
How long does it how long does it typically take you to then get settled, organized, feel that sense of familiarity that you'd feel like, yeah, I've got my mojo back. I'm got my momentum, and my number would be more like a 9. How long does that period normally take?
Oh, I think it's usually it's like a month or two, probably like closer to 2 months. Um, yeah, something like that. Yeah, in the past it's always been about 1 to 2 months, I would say. Yeah. Then I've got a
Okay.
real feeling of how things are. Yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty quick. For your benefit, I'd be interested, Steve. What would you say for you when you've probably been very stable in a lot of your roles? I'm not sure, but when you go through the similar process, how do you feel about the same thing? I'm sure you maybe relate to it. And what time frame would you put out there for you?
Good question, Paul. It's usually the turmoil is before the change, because once I've made the decision to change, well, then it's all guns blazing. So for Dennis, hearing the thing about harmony and wanting to complete and getting the job done, he'd be out of his skin at the moment. So that's pretty normal. The emotions are going off. But it's interesting. I mentioned when I made the change, one of my drives, well, how I'm made up, is to then make another change. You've got to convince me. I just won't change for the sake of change. And I think that's what Dennis is going through. He's made the change. It's now all brand new. And it's just uncomfortable because like a completer wants to know all the answers and we don't have them. So therefore, but that's when you got to back yourself and say, well, I'm here. I know what I'm doing, and let's go. And that's when I've made the change. I'm in that space. So all the turmoils before the decision.
And then how long does it take you typically to get to that place of familiarity and, you got your stride back?
Well, I interesting. I made the decision to be in stride day one and recognize that there'll be lots and lots of stuff that I don't know the answers to. But this is where the mental toughness say, well, I know what it takes. I back myself to work it out. And it's just a matter of understanding and driving in. So, and with the state of wanting to always learn, there's always going to be something new tomorrow and the day after. And for example, I did a major putting a customer, a major bank in Australia into the cloud, first one in Australia in this particular area. We had no idea of the technology, the language, and all sorts of stuff, but we made it happen without any sort of strong technical skills within myself and the team. It was totally unknown, scary process, but we backed ourselves to get the job done. So with that approach, and wanting to learn, there's always something new that's going to rock the boat. So therefore, you back yourself to say, well, I'll get through this. I'll just work it out. So I come with that approach, which I suppose is the years of experience and being comfortable with it. I don't have to have all the answers, but I know I'll work it out somehow.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. For the benefit of the team, I would say that my experience from a lot of people with the same idea as Dennis and Steve typically spend the first year using that year as the year of getting familiar and comfortable. And I'm thinking of someone like a school teacher, you know, who, if they've asked to take on a different class to what they've had in the past, the first year of running that class, it's all new. Every term or semester is new. And it's not until they get to the second year that they would sort of go, well, yeah, I've been here before. I now know what to expect. I can predict, I can plan with more certainty. Now, that's when you're on the yearly calendar of a school teacher. If you were, you know, pick a totally different role, if you were a paramedic, until you've experienced some things where you go, oh, yes, I've been to that before. I know what to anticipate. You know, I can predict what we need to do. I know the procedure and the process. But how long would it take you to do that? You know, you could spend the first 3 to 6 months before you start to see a bunch of repeats. You know, you might have someone have a heart attack on day 1 and a heart attack on day 2, and you might have that sense of familiarity. But to get to a point where it happens regularly enough that you feel, oh yes, I'm getting really comfortable with the role. There's that level of predictability. I think that's probably a key word. It can take months, and I would say typically it's at least that 3 to 6 month time frame, and then either shorter or longer depending on the specific role. But even in a new relationship that somebody has, until there's that sense of predictability that plays out, they can all feel very new, and it's the newness that can be a little daunting. So to those of you with that complete drive, or that live or work with people that have it, whenever there's that sense of it's still new, that's the part that is daunting. When the new word switches to, you know, the sense of predictability, you've seen it before, that's when they will start to feel more in flow. And 1 to 2 months, honestly, is pretty quick. So I commend you. And to your point, Steve, even having the self-awareness to then consciously sort of go, no, I'm going to be okay with that leap of faith. You know, I've made the decision. It's a little bit challenging, but it'll all be good, and I back myself. They're all like accelerants in the process.
A question, Paul. You mentioned sort of getting used to the normality of the role. Is it possibly you become, I'm going to use the word complacent. It's not the right word, but it's suggesting the state you get into. I remember when I've moved into roles, I take a note of all the things that I recognize that should be changed over time. Because over time, we adjust and we get used to something. And I'm going to suggest we do come a little bit, well, when I first arrived, we should change that. But no, it works, so why bother? So you come a little bit complacent. So for someone who was a completer, that's easy to fall into that mode. I've seen it. So to work against that, I've noted things, especially when we say moved house, we noted all the things that we wanted to change. So it just made a list of, and we worked through them. So there's that balance, I suppose. Do we become complacent or do what we've been employed to do? And that's in part of today in conflict, become a change agent and make things happen. So don't know, it's just a question out there.
That's good. Yeah, thank you. Pam, I see you've asked Dennis a question in the chat. Dennis,
I was about to reply. I've got an answer. Well, the question is, I'm curious to see a current benefit to being in a new environment. And that's an easy one. I think it keeps the brain malleable. You have to be kind of dexterous in a way. So it stops you from like getting kind of really fixed habits, that kind of thing. So yeah. It just keeps you a bit sharper, because if you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, it can be you won't notice it, but like you'll get stuck in your ways. Like I had an epiphany like about 5 years ago. It's like, oh, so this is why really old people get senile, because I could start to see my my kind of like thoughts, my early thoughts starting to like harden a bit. And it was a bit scary. So I was like, okay, I gotta make sure that doesn't happen. I don't want to be like my, I don't know, my parents in some ways.
Too late for that.
I don't know that I even want to ask what old is to you, Dennis.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like, I don't like, it's not 50, that's for sure. But it's like I can see it.
Don't answer. It's a trap. Don't answer.
Trap. I feel old already. Like,
There's something Dave said earlier when you said about the 6. You said, no, nothing's wrong. And so you give it a 6. And in this world of the we do this PPI, a 6 is like flags go off, and and the guards come in with their guns drawn and all that stuff.
Yeah, I was tossing up between a 6 and a 7. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't backpedal now, son.
No,
You're in there. But my point is, for the rest of us, that drive, I thought there was a powerful thing there, which was that rest of us don't know what's actually going on with the complete and how they're perceiving a situation and dealing with it and where they're going with it. And particularly when your ID got changed back to a 3, you said a 4 and a 3. I said, that makes even more sense, that the 3 down there, because I'm going, we would never know you're a 6. You look like an 8 or a 9, right? Everything's fine. There's nothing really wrong. You're just not settled. And I don't think we appreciate the prickliness you guys feel when we don't see there be a reason for it, so we wouldn't think so. But there's more going on than we would see. And I think it means in a workplace, I'm often telling my bosses, pay more attention to what they're not saying, which is strange coming from an 8 and authenticate. And I guess what I'm saying, from your point of view, have people often underestimated how struggling something is for you, and you don't want to point it out, but you feel a little bit alone with that? Is that anything?
Oh yeah, people think I'm having a great time all the time. They think I'm the happiest person alive. But that's kind of I like cracking jokes, but maybe that's it. I haven't really thought about it, but I've got a pretty pleasant demeanor most of the time. So and I try to smile to people, and that kind of that's just the way I am. I guess
we get the message nothing's wrong, and so nothing is, and so for me I'm just wondering, is the 6 wrong?
It's I just don't want to burden people with any of my problems.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now we're getting it.
Yeah, no, it's probably that. I grew up I always say this. Grew up in an Asian household, and you're taught from a very, very early age to be compliant and not to make a fuss, and put your head down and work hard, and that's it. And you're meant to kind of suck up your problems a lot. So it's like I'll give you an example. Adolescent teens, boys going through struggles. Like, I have no idea what that is at all. Like, I've never, and I got bullied at high school. So I never felt like depressed or anything. I just kind of, oh well, this is the 6 years of my life, so I'll suck it up, and then I'll be fine when I get out of it. And I was, but so yeah, that's probably a good example of yeah. And I had bad episodes of school. So anyway.
So I think one of the things that's good learning, and thank you for digging into it a little bit, Greg, because I think it's just such an important point, is that even though someone like Dennis or a Steve or people we know that are verified, or really, I think the focus here is more the complete and avoid improvised combination. Even though they can come across friendly, fun, on the surface everything's fine. What can be missing is this sense of momentum. And when you think about the productivity that some of us have seen these ideas produce when they're not just in stride, but when they're really on a roll, that's the word, when they're on a roll, it's really powerful to them, and they have that sense of what they know they're capable of and they can produce. And I think when they start something new, even though they can have made the decision themselves, like what they're doing and all of that, the fact that they haven't yet got on the roll, they're not yet producing what they know they're capable of producing. And that, to me, would be a part of the lag. Is that, you relate to that?
Yeah, like what you just said is 100% true. That's that's spot on.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Couldn't have said it better.
Now, thank you. Kiara, am I saying your name correctly, Kiara? I saw your message in the chat.
Hi, Paul. Yes, it's Kira. We've met before at a Pride event through Cisco, and I joined this topic last time, but I'll be honest, I don't meet or see a lot of people with you know my idea, or anyone that's been on a talk like this. And I am my report to an absolute T. I'm the opposite to the gent speaking before. I'm Irish. I'm strong. I say what I see. I'm very outcomes driven. And because I'm so focused on driving outcomes, I'm just really direct, because I don't hide from things. I feel it's a waste of time and energy. But saying all of that, I do find whenever someone is not demonstrating values or principles that are necessary or drive a cohesive society, or being a good corporate citizen, you know, I feel a need. It's like Tourette's. I need to say something. I can't hold it in. But I also don't enjoy conflict. Like, I genuinely don't, because I don't feel that I'm a perfect human. So I really want to be the best version of myself. And I want, when I speak to someone, I want to encourage them to see a different perspective without being that really direct and abrupt where they're on the back foot. Does that make sense? It's really conflicting.
Totally. So you're lucky that on this call we've got, I'm looking at, 3 people right now who have got not the same idea as you, but they're sort of in the same direction. And I'm thinking of Greg, Alona, and Cliff, a strong, or even Patricia, actually 4 people who are strong authenticators, and also they're avoid verify. So very similar to you in that regard, like that same need, compelling need to be very straight up and direct and authentic. And also the avoid verify is the avoidance of the confrontation. So I think it could be really, if there's anything you 4 have that you could respond to Chiara with, I think it could be really helpful to how do you deal with.
And I'm also dyslexic, so I've just realized I get my wrong numbers. So you are spot on. I'm actually 5744. I'm so sorry, but I am dyslexic, so that doesn't surprise me.
So Chiara,
okay.
first,
we all went and checked, so it's all good.
So Chiara is my daughter's name, and the first Chiara that I've ever seen. And Chiara, I myself am dyslexic as well. So very interesting. Great to meet you.
And you.
Hey, something that really helps me, Chiara, and I've learned it through many, many hard lessons, is I'm about to open my mouth. And is opening my mouth actually going to move things forward and be valuable, or is it just me wanting to get it off my chest? And just having that little conversation with myself has been a huge help for me. It helps me keep quiet when I probably should be keeping quiet. Yeah.
It's a fine line, isn't it? Because I want to drive, I want to change, I want to, make an impact. But it's a very simple, but it's very true as well. You've got to pick your battles and pick your fights, and I'm still learning that every day, because you can't fix everything. Yeah,
like I said, many hard learned lessons to help me keep my mouth shut. And I don't do it all the time, as I'm sure many people on this call can attest.
Hey, Chiara, I don't know whether you realize, is it possible to have your camera on?
Oh, yeah, I thought I had it on. Sorry.
No.
Wait there.
It's just always.
There we go.
I think
it's not coming.
No, I think maybe you're
there you go.
There we go.
There you go. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's just good to see the human behind it. Yeah, you're right.
Apologies. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused.
Cliff, I was going to ask you before. You go, Greg.
I'm just wondering what the real what's the problem? Like we were going to comment on what it's like from our point of view with your drive, and I'm not hearing what's the thing that's really bugging you. You said helping your thing, and
because I'm looking after myself by saying I'm really literal. I say what I see, and I say what I don't feel comfortable with, or I don't agree, and it can come across as, but it's very, it's detailed. It's not just an opinion. I give evidence and I give my reasoning for it, but because it can come across really direct, people can misread it from me being abrupt, and they don't like that I am being, I work in a global organization, and we've real diversity of culture, and my directness can come across as maybe being abrupt and sometimes maybe a bit rude. And that's not my intent. My intent is to address, resolve, move forward, learn, or have a robust conversation. I don't mind being challenged. I quite enjoy dialogue because I am dyslexic. So, but that's just pleasing me. But that aside, I still don't like confrontation. Okay. So whenever I go into a situation, I go in with real evidence and I go in with all this information. And that's not probably the right thing to do when it's a negative, let's say I'm giving feedback. It's not considerate of the other person. And I really struggle with that detailed direction and it's very conflicting.
Yeah. Okay. So here's number one is, do you have permission before you give them all this wonderful detail and depth and reasons and rationale and so forth? Like, did they even ask for it? That'd be the first thing about whether or not you're being rude or insulting or someone else. Like, if they've asked for it, then you've got like permission to go, right? If you're giving it because you feel the need, there's a worm in your gut, and you've got to say it, then it's probably not going to land well, because it's not for them, it's for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
The other thing is the way we are with our drives with the 7, we've got pointed, we are attracted to inconsistencies. We're attracted to hypocrisy. We're attracted to the thing not being right? And if we have permission, then we go in that. But we got to make sure that what we're offering is something in a world they understand, not our world, not our standards, not our what we think's cool, right? So you want to tailor your offer to where's their world, and take your world to theirs, not expect them to take their world to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the last piece is sometimes you're just going to do it and not pick it up well, and it's like you throw the grenade. And all I like to say in that case is stay and take the heat for what you just caused. And you just shut up and let them all have a turn. Now they're in conversation, and it's not confrontation, it's conversation.
Yeah.
But if you delivered that the way you delivered your explanation to me, it comes off confronting because I'm not involved in it. You know what I'm saying? If I don't feel involved, I feel you're feeling that confrontation. But as soon as we're engaged, boom, boom, we bring the reality that no one's talking about. We bring clarity that they don't have, but only when they're ready for it.
Yeah.
That would be my offer.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you, Greg, for that. And what I would like to add to that is, see, just by the discussion, I can feel the emotion. Because I've had people say, this is the way it is. And I want to say some bad words. Because it doesn't work for me. I don't like conflict. I like harmony. I like to be involved in the conversation, not somebody telling me what to do. So thank you for your words, Greg.
And Judy, I can tell you there is nothing worse than that minute after it comes out of my mouth where I go, oh. Like, it is the worst feeling. And sometimes, I have to say I'm really grateful that I'm more likely to do that in a situation where I'm with someone I've worked with a long time, or where I feel like there's a certain level of trust. When I do it with strangers, then it's just like awful. But and I can go back and clean it up as necessary. And often people will come to me and say, I'm really glad you said something. Nobody else was going to say something, which at some point it's like, I'm willing to take that because we need to talk about it, but it's not like it's good for my career or my level of safety with people who are, not wired like me.
So one of the things that I wanted to add to that is it's also the tone with which you deliver it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a lower voice and you're just saying it more calmly, sometimes you can say something that's a little more direct that if you're using a barbing tonality, and some people aren't even aware of the tonality that they use, it can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. I just had a situation like that, where a very good longtime friend in a conversation by phone, he got triggered. And so then I started telling him about the situation, and he said in a very loud tone, which is what happens to him when he gets triggered, very long time, none of that's important.
Mm.
And just, you know, so the tone, the volume, and so that is, I will just put out to you my soapbox. If you would just try this for me. When you feel compelled to say something, instead of just saying it, put it in the form of a question. And ask people, you know, have you ever considered whatever you want to say? And I bet money it's going to land a whole bunch better.
And it's a lot easier to remember to do that when you're in stride. Because
Yeah.
when you're stressed and you're not in stride, that's when that filter just.
I agree.
So it's, I mean, I don't know what your friend's idea is. He sounds, I mean, I have some guesses, but I think there might be
4827.
Just to use authenticate. What?
4827 probably.
I would ever say that's not important, because I don't rank things. Everything's important.
I just wanted to add on this from sort of the opposite side. So as maybe another style of ID, I think sometimes when it's said and you're not expecting it, so it just comes out, we actually don't hear it. So there's sort of, it's almost like a double whammy. So it's almost like, as Greg said, unless you ask permission, the other person's not only might be there's the shock effect. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, but they actually don't hear it. So the feedback that you're desperate to give and in all the right spirit is lost. And I think that's often, you know, one of the challenges with the use authenticate, because they need to be authentic. They need to speak their truth in the moment to be true to their ID. And but then for the message to land with the other person, unless they're ready. I've often explained it almost like, you know, sometimes if you're going to sneeze, you do the before you sneeze, so people know it's coming. And I often say, look, I really need to give you some feedback now. Is that okay? You know, and definitely what Greg's saying, ask permission. But even if you just let them know it's coming, as opposed to then suddenly, whoa, where did that come from? And it's the shock value, and they've not heard a word you've said. And I just think that's something else, maybe, you know, for Kiara and others to build into their you know, strategy box. You know.
Yeah, I'm getting really worried. I actually don't do the whole feedback because I'm conscious of my style. So I'm coaching myself on how to do it. I have been in scenarios, but they have been set up where it was open dialogue. So I suppose because I'm so conscious of my ID, what I'm saying is I avoid those conversations. I'm worried that people think I'm a bull in a china shop. I suppose because my idea is so strong, what I'm saying is I actually don't have honest conversations whenever they are most necessary because of that idea and how to nurture my idea and use it to my advantage. So this has been very, very good. Thank you so much, because I think if I set myself up and the others, and I love that about the questioning. So rather than me telling someone how I'm feeling, I think it's more about, you know, how would you feel if this was a scenario that you were placed in? Tell me how that would make you feel, and let them sort of wear the shoe rather than tell them how I'm feeling. I think would be an amazing way to flip that. So thank you. I've learned a lot.
I think it's also really helpful to state your intention before you give whatever the data is, where it's like, I really want this to work and I want it to be successful. And I have some ideas or whatever, because that allows people to get out of like, oh my gosh, they're doing that because or whatever. And it creates a little space.
I'm very good at that at work when it comes to actually day-to-day work. This is more when human emotions and humans are involved. I think it's where I probably avoid, but I'm very comfortable in when it's more that commercial operating world and driving change. My intentions are very clear, but when there's emotions involved, I'm concerned that my intent is diluted.
Do you think there's moments in the commercial world where there aren't emotions involved when you're working with other people?
No, but business is business, and where no one's perfect.
Yeah, but my point is business is business, but it's done with people, and therefore it's kind of like always on, and you never know when some drives they're going and they're on fire inside, but you wouldn't know because they're good at covering it. So if you played the game like it's always emotional and played from that angle, you might get you might feel less surprised when they blow up.
Greg, I wouldn't get anything done if I'm worried about that all day long.
Oh boy, can we have a whole session with Chiara one day?
So exactly. So Chiara, a couple of things to share with you. First of all, if it makes a big difference for someone like me, as an avoid authenticator, if you just say, this isn't personal, this is just about the work, and you remind me, because if I don't hear it from you, I don't know whether you're saying it because it's about me, and I'll probably take it that way first, or if it's about the work, because the two are intricately linked. But if you reassured me and said, Paul, this isn't about you, like I just want to talk about how we're working together, like I really like you as a person, but the way we're working together is not working for me, then I'm like, oh, okay. But if you didn't disconnect the personal from the work, I will just keep them connected together. And that buggers it up and makes your feedback land way harsher than what it would otherwise land. So just disconnecting that. I don't think you'd probably have the same challenge with other authenticators as much as you would with people like me and the avoid authenticator. So I think it's really important to disconnect the two. And the second thing I wanted to say to you was, so often I look back on the grenade that's been thrown or spoken by the authenticator, and I actually look at it and think that just because it was a grenade doesn't mean it was wrong or that it shouldn't have been said or that it wasn't useful. It didn't look useful when it exploded. But once it all landed and the dust settled and everything happened, it was like, actually, it not only needed to be said, it was constructive. It just didn't feel like that at the time, And yeah, I think from all the things I've heard, the most important thing is first up to check, who are you doing this for? Is if you're really doing this for the benefit of the group, or are you doing this because you've got something, I like Greg's term, if you've got a worm inside you and you just want to get it out. I mean, that's that whole point about checking, attention out and doing it for the benefit of others. And that all happens best, as Alona said, if you're in stride. And it sounds like you've got a really good handle on your ID, and you know that. So that point that Cliff made of like, I'm about to open my mouth. So, I'm pulling the pin out and I'm about to throw the grenade. Like, am I in stride? I think that's such a cool thing to think about before you then proceed. Like, the pin's coming out. Am I in stride? Am I doing this for the right reasons? Is it about them and all of that? And disconnect the personal. I think you'd then be likely to still have a grenade, but it would be really constructive rather than destructive.
Can I add a little bit extra to that, Paul, as well? As a completer, throwing hand grenades at a completer is dangerous. But I
Greg wants a better metaphor than a grenade.
I noticed. As a completer, I fall into the trap of, as we were talking earlier with Dennis about, once you get to a decision, I've gone through all the thought process and being very analytical through, you then get to a point where the decision's made. So I find when you go and talk to other people and present ideas, I already thought through everything. But when you bring it to somebody, it's the first time they've heard it. And to one of the other points, are they actually hearing what you're saying first up? Is you got to check in. So the thought to me, I need to work on bringing people on the journey. So Kiara, you might be just landing into somewhere where you've thought through something, you see it clearly, but no one else sees it. And they're in a different space. And as Greg mentioned, their emotions could be all over it. They could be happy, sad, angry, annoyed, whatever, but they're emotionally in some state. So you land in with some very, very truthful insights, could be exactly right, but you haven't brought them on the journey. So therefore it's like for a completer, you go, oh, hang on, the walls go up and I wouldn't hear what you're saying. I'm in defensive mode. So if you go to a completer with just dropping it over the fence, well, then you're in for a fight. So taking someone on the journey is the key, I think, from my side.
Yeah. I'd like to remind people something I heard years and years, probably close on 30 years ago. Of all of our communication, 7% comes from the words we use, 38% from the tone of voice, hence Pam's comment about tonality, and 55% comes from our physiology. And so rather than focus on the words we're using, when you think about the 38 and the 55%, it all has to do with whether you're being congruent and in stride. And I think it's so much more about checking that part first and thinking about your intent rather than thinking about the words to use and how to actually land it. That much thinking for a 5-7-4-4 is sort of a lot of work, but getting yourself in stride first, I think, is really cool. And I just want to say, to wrap my part of it, Kiara, I think you've been a star raising this topic today. I mean, everyone's been engaged and you have such a lovely way of presenting it, including, by the way, we didn't say this, but smiling is a great thing to do, and you do that really well. Like that helps take a lot of the harshness out of whatever you might be sharing. So I think you might be doing it better than you're giving yourself credit for, but you bring a lot of value to this conversation. I would just love to know what do you actually do for the benefit of the group and whatever ongoing discussions we have with you. Can you just introduce yourself a little bit for the group?
I did 15 years in HR and then I took a complete career change at the age of 40. So I'm actually now in a customer success manager and software adoption across 3 technical architectures. So very, very different and thriving in some aspects and knowing that I took a huge leap of faith in myself and succeeded. I wake up every day with a completely different mindset. But I'm also, recognize that I'm far from perfect but I do want to show up as the best version of myself every day, like I genuinely do. So I'm conflicted with, I feel my strengths are also my weaknesses, and I know you shouldn't call them weaknesses, but that's the truth. That's how I look at it every day. So very conscious of that.
Thank you for letting us know. I mean, given what you said and knowing the organisation you work in under Jackie, I'd love to talk to you about change and the role you could play as like a champion of change. Because of what you do, but what you bring to the table.
Ambassador. Yeah.
Oh my God, you'd be fantastic. Please come to more of these webinars, because with what you learn and what you share, your way of sharing with some people in this community that do it so well, you're a great example of it. You would get a lot, but you would give a lot as well. And you'd always, I'd love seeing you on the calls. Thank you for sharing what you've shared today.
My pleasure. Thank you for allowing me the time, because I have learned a lot. So I know I took up a lot of time, but I hope others learned. It's been a real eye opener. So thank you.
Very welcome. Given where we're at with the time, rather than introduce anything new, Tristan, can I come back to you, because I saw your score was down. It was a 6 as well, and I'm just curious. I know you've not had the best week. It might be helpful to others to hear from you. But just what's going on for you, and given the injury, how has it really affected you that's made you now sort of put up that you're a 6?
Yeah, sorry I'm not on camera as well. I'm actually on the couch with my leg up at the moment. So, I'll save you the luxury view. But yeah, I damaged my knee after 2 years of since my last injury to the same knee, and it's just very frustrating that I'm not able to do all the things that I need to be able to do. And you know, I put a lot of pressure on my family, you know, and those around me, and you know, I have a lot of things that I want to achieve at work, and not being able to do those, all of that combined is is really frustrating, you know, and demotivating, because I'd recovered from this injury. It's the same injury, you know, and it's just super frustrating.
Yeah, and painful. It's always hard to maintain a positive perspective when you've got pain. I don't know whether it's, you know, I can't say I'm any expert on dimensions of that, but it's really hard to be even looking for strategies or ways to be more in stride when you're in pain. So that's a massive inhibitor. But the challenge that I love, that a lot of us sort of embrace, is even when there are setbacks like this, whether it's an injury or some other change that we weren't expecting, is how can you still do that and be in stride? It makes perfect logical sense to turn around and say, you know, well, this has happened, that's why my number's down. But what is really cool is if you can sort of go, well, it's happened, and how do I now deal with that in stride? And for what it's worth, Tristan, one of the things that I heard in your explanation was, this is stopping you from doing what you want to do. You know, like there's a lot of other things that you want to do, right? In terms of work and just not being what you perceive as a burden on your family and so on. To me, in case this helps you, not to challenge it, but just in case it helps, get into a place of sort of going, well, this has happened for a reason, and it's actually a really positive reason. I just can't see it yet, you know, and just to embrace what's happened. Like, work will always be there, life will go on, but if we knew what there'll be goodness that comes from this, but there's a way you can just accept it and enjoy the time on the lounge and sort of go, well, I must be meant to watch a movie, or, you know, some other way of the acceptance, rather than this is wrong that it's happened and it's in the way of me doing what I want to do. But if there's a way to get to just that total acceptance, you've certainly got my support, and I'm sure all of the team support, to just let it be, and work will still be there, you know. But if there's a way to get to that acceptance place, I would encourage that.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I go back to one of the early on webinars that I know I've told you I really enjoyed around resilience, and that's a really good reminder about that. You know, so I think that was even before I joined. So thank you. It does help.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, it's a tough one, because you know, you got a problem solving makeup. You know, you want to solve it, and sometimes it's actually you're meant to marinate in it right now. You know, I look at what I've been through over the last few years, different things, and without regurgitating all of that, when you're in it, it seems really bad. But when you get to the other side, you realize the role it played in shaping the future that is now so valuable, and you can't be anything but grateful for it. So I don't know what will happen for you, but I trust that it was meant to be. And the sooner you get to that place of acceptance, the more you can actually use it really positively. So I would just, remind you of that. Does anyone else have any other questions on their minds they'd like to raise today, particularly on the core topic of, you know, like Kiara said, about dealing with confrontation or conflict, and turning that into more healthy, synergistic situations?
Well, my only additional comment would be something that I just wrote in the chat, which is, when you're out of stride or you're concerned about something, really oftentimes we start to go, oh, I should be pushing it out and I should not be doing this. In Tristan's case, what I heard him say is, I shouldn't be laid up. I need to get things done. And I think thanking that part of you that's saying, I need you to be better, or I need you to be a certain way. I think we need to thank that part of us that's trying to protect us and really accept that as is. And then the next step is what's taking somebody out of stride. So I know it takes me out of stride if I feel like I don't have momentum, as an example. So I have to thank that part of me that's feeding into that gift, and then find my strategies.
Thanks, Pam. Thank you. That's good. It's just appreciating all parts of us, even if they don't feel like they're meant to be there right now, but they always are. And, you know, I love that. You know, when people get to different decades, they say in your 50s, you realize this, and in your 60s, you realize that, and in your 70s. And one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of people say, I don't know whether it's at a set age, but is as they get older, they realize, you know what, it always works out. It always works out, you know, and it's actually meant to be the way. And it all comes down to the perspective you choose to have at any point in time, including whether you see it as conflict or even as synergy, or the steps to synergy. So, you know, I think it's just really powerful to keep that front of mind. Guys, we're right at the end of our time, a couple of minutes ahead, but Kiara, I want to thank you for having the courage to, you know, as a newbie to these conversations, not necessarily to ID, but, you know, what you shared today was, I know it was helpful to you, but it was really helpful and insightful to the rest of us to dig into all of that. And I love that a lot of the insights that helped you didn't just come from other people with a similar ID to you, but came from people like Judy, that's really quite different, but was able to share that balance of, you know, how someone with an opposite ID receives you, and that was really helpful to you as well. So I love the diversity of this group. I think the synergy, we're a great example of synergy in play, because it's everyone, I think, feels the safety of being able to share whatever's on their heart and mind. And you can see the outcome then helps each and every one of us, not just the person that was asking the question. So I think today has been a great example of the power of a synergistic brains trust, where there's a lot of expertise, and there really is in this room, a lot of, you know, expertise, but there's also that safety that allows everyone to speak authentically and actually quite vulnerably. And we saw you do that, Kiara. So thanks for helping make this one a really great session today. All of you, actually, not just Kiara, but all of you guys, been a great session. So I wish you a great rest of your day, and look forward to seeing you at our next session, which will be not in 2 weeks, but in 3 weeks' time. The link, Ian sent it up in the chat right at the top. Thanks, everybody. Take care.